Hey everybody, so for this ear tutorial we're going to be making these Cauldron ears. It's the Evil Queen Cauldrons. They come in popcorn buckets at Disney World, Disneyland in 3 different colors. So this is the green version. We're going to actually be making the purple version. At some point I want to make the orange version until Disney comes out with more colors. Right? Anything to make money. But, so we're going to be making these. They are super easy. In the file sections, as always, is the cut file for it. There'll be like the PDF. I do it as a PNG, as JPEG as well. I had to think for a second. Sometimes I do PNGs. In case I cut them out, but I also include the SVG in case you have a Cricut or Silhouette machine and want to send it through your cutter. I just make like 1 pair. I'm not making a whole bunch, so it's not really beneficial to send through my machine. But if you're making a whole bunch, certainly beneficial. And I do include that in the zip file, as well as a diagram kind of labeling what all the pieces are. So what you're going to need to make these ears is you're going to need a cotton woven. I'm going to be stitching it. I'm using a black cotton woven. You're going to need some sort of fabric for the actual bow, whatever that may be. The other thing that you're going to need is, this is fusible fleece. I buy it at Joann's when they have the 60% off sale. Best time to buy and stock up on this stuff. One size kind of bumpy. I don't know if you can see. One size kind of bumpy, one size kind of smooth. The other thing I use to stuff inside the ears is 1/4 inch foam. This comes from both Michael's and Joann's. I typically buy it from Michael's, and actually they're bulk deals, so when they have like a good like 30-40% off coupon, I buy a whole bunch of packs in bulk, because I believe they're about $2 for a 8.5 by 11 sheet. So you're going to need that, your fusible fleece, your black cotton woven, and then the other thing you're going to need is glitter foam. And what you're going to choose is you're going to need black glitter foam for the handles, and then you're going to need whatever color you want kind of the evil slime kind of pouring over the cauldron to be. These are green, like I said. The popcorn buckets come in purple and orange as well. And we're going to be making a purple version today. So, to get started, you will either cut out all your pieces on your machine, or you will, sorry guys, I'm going to be bumping and moving this a lot, because I have like 3 different workstations. So I cut all the pieces inside the black line, okay? And the pieces that you should have, and I am missing one. Oh, it's in front of me. I needed it. So the pieces that you should have are your kind of slime piece, your cauldron piece, the inside of your cauldron, and then the little handle pieces. There is actually a piece I don't have cut out, so this is what I'm going to go over. So first thing you're going to do is take your cotton woven fabric, and this piece, if you look in the diagram, will be labeled sew. Okay, there's a sew and a cut. So what I do is I lay my sew piece down on my cotton woven. I take a marking pen, I'm just using a chalk roller, and I trace around it onto it, and then I cut a 1/4 inch seam allowance around it when I cut it out. Okay, I don't use the cut, but if you want, you can use the cut, which is a 1/4 inch bigger than your sew, and do it that way, okay? So the next step is, once you have it traced and cut out, whoop, that's why I had the piece. Sorry, guys. This is what you're going to be cutting all of your foam pieces out, your foam innards out of. You're going to need 2 1/4 inch pieces per ear, so you'll cut those. You'll also need to cut one of these pieces out of your fusible interfacing, and then you're also going to be cutting all of your bow pieces out as well. Some people like to use pre-made bows, that sort of thing. So I go over and include how I make my bows, but you can do it however you want. Okay, so once you have your sew piece traced and then it cut out with a extra 1/4 inch, or you use the piece for it, doesn't matter. What I do is, if you guys can see where the little points are at the bottom where the arc is, I mark with my marking pen. So can you guys see that? All right, there and there. So at that point and at that point I mark, and then I mark a 1/4 of an inch up. I sew a lot, so I know what a 1/4 inch is. It's like a quarter, actually it's kind of a generous 1/4 inch. It's like halfway between, it's like, you know, 3/8 I would say. So if you can see, so this line here, the top line then, is going to become your sew line, okay? And we're gonna go over to our sewing machine. I do want to note that is if you want to hand sew, or if you want to do a no sew method with hot glue because you don't want to use your sewing machine, that's perfectly fine. You can definitely do that. I just prefer for these to do the sewing method, and here's why. Let me get my ears. Is that you can see my sew. It just makes it nice and neat. If you do no sew, you're gonna have to kind of cover this up with a band, and I didn't want to, you know, see a band here, you know, but it's up to you. So if you want to no sew them, you just have to cover your seam then. I don't have to cover my seam with the actual sewing method. So let me turn on my sewing machine. All right. Let me make sure you guys can see me sewing. All right. So like I said, I'm gonna start at that line that I marked approximately a 1/4 of an inch up, and I'm just going to sew all the way around following that chalk line, okay? Just seeing if my threads are there. My cats like to eat them. All right. And then make sure you backstitch on the ends, because when you go, sorry guys, there's a cat already. When you go to stuff the foam into these, it kind of will really flex that seam because of the shape of the cauldron, because you have that kind of big belly in the middle and then you have the kind of rim at the top. And I'm just slowly going around, just following my chalk line, kind of lifting up my presser foot as I go. That just kind of, that just kind of helps get around the curves, especially the lip at the top. And I'm just going around. This is kind of like a straight way. Power through that. And it is hard to kind of see because of how small the piece is. So just really take your time. But it's not hard. You have the lines marked. So it's just follow the lines. And it's okay if you go in too far like I just did on that side, where the cauldron handles come in, because there is a 1/4 of an inch additional kind of flexed into it to deal with the 1/4 inch of the foam on the sides. So it'll just hug it a little bit tighter, so you're fine. And then make sure when you hit that first line that you drew past, you stop and back stitch on either sides, okay? All right. So then I am just clipping my threads. All right. And then the next thing you're going to do is, so you have your ear, is I'm going to take my pin out that's holding the two together. And then I am going to, before I move over, sorry, I got a pin in my mouth, but down it goes. All right. So what I'm going to be doing is cutting it down then to 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, okay? And what this does is just kind of helps it so you don't get all that bulk in that seam. The other thing you can do is that if you're finding it's not laying flat, is you can cut little slits into it, and that'll help the seams lay flat as well. So what I mean by slits is if we come over here, so you just kind of cut them kind of evenly apart. But I find if I give it 1/8 of an inch, and it's kind of actually smaller than 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, that I don't need to cut those slits. And then when I get back to that first line here where I started stitching, I just kind of cater off, okay? So it'll then look like that. All right. So let me get rid of my little scraps, and then I'm gonna move you guys then over to my hot glue station, and we're gonna talk about assembling because it's that easier. So sorry guys, I'm gonna move this. All right. So let me put this off to the side. Hopefully you can see. All right. So for the foam kind of accents, what you're gonna do is I trace them on the back. You can also, like I said, cut them with your cutting machine. And the key to remembering when you trace them on is that you need to flip it over and trace the wrong side to the back, so that way when it's on the front. So so this is the right side. You can see that, maybe it's a little out of focus. You can kind of see my black line through it because I cut inside. Remember, you're going to cut inside that black border. And then I trace the wrong side to the foam, okay? So right side, wrong side, trace. Got it? And then I just take a pair of scissors, and it's super easy to cut out. I just have to cut this. I think I need to cut another black handle. It got lost. I had those all pre-cut. I just didn't have this. And the foam that I recommend that you use for the actual, not for the handles. I don't recommend this for the handles. The foam that I recommend for kind of like the poison kind of bowling over is has a sticky side to it. So it's self-adhesive foam. And that's what I recommend using, and you'll see why. It just helps with when you go to actually glue it down, is that you can place it and it'll kind of help it stay in place. The reason I don't recommend it for the handles is because the handles kind of stick off, and you don't want that sticky back, and then like things can get stuck to it hanging off. So for the handles, I use a non-adhesive glitter foam instead. So adhesive glitter foam for the poison brew, and then coming out of the cauldron, and then the handles of the cauldron I use with a non-adhesive, so there's no sticky backing on the actual handles because they hang off. So I'm just cutting this out. Sorry guys, I wanted to go over tracing, which was why I did it this way. But I know my videos can get a little long, so I try to prep them like I did the other ear. So we're only really doing one cauldron ear, and I have the other one already done. So you only have to watch me do this once. And then, like I said, I do the same video on how to make bows and attach them in every single one. So you can then just turn off the video when we're done making these. All right, we're getting there. Sorry. It's where you can easily fast forward for a while. I'm just using small fisheye scissors to kind of cut these out. I find that it helps with the small detail cutting them. They're technically fabric scissors, but these I use for foam. I do have my fabric only scissors, which if you sew, you can relate, because people like to use them for other things, and it drives you absolutely through the roof bonkers, because then your scissors are dull and won't cut through fabric. But anyway, if you're a sewer, you can totally relate. All right. But like I said, these can be done no-sew. They can do the hand stitching with like the felt ears, like the pumpkin ones that I did. There's so many different ways to assemble your ears. You just kind of, whichever method you want to use, you can use. Okay. You just need the template. And that's the way I built the template. Alright. Almost done. Oop. Sorry, guys. Just gotta cut out the eyes and the nose. And hope I don't mess it up, because we're not doing this again. Like I said, I mean, this would be a little bit quicker with your cutting machine. But I'm not making a whole bunch, and it's kind of not worth running it, so. Almost done, come on. There. Oop. So how you tell the difference between the self-adhesive foam and the non-adhesive foam is that your adhesive foam will have this white paper over the back. And that's what's kind of covering the sticky thing, and you'll see we'll peel this off then to stick it. Oop. Almost done. Sorry guys, and I keep bumping the camera because I have it in front of me. All right. So there's that. And then I think I just need, so I just need one more handle because I managed to lose one. So you're just going to take your handle piece. And how I actually do this, and it's going to be super hard because I have, of course, a dark counter. And so I take a pen, and on the back side, and I just, like I said, make sure you flip over your thing, and I just trace around it. And this is just a regular ballpoint pen. It can smudge, so do keep that in mind. And then you can still see on the black it shows up. All right. And I'm just, then gonna cut that out. All right, and then we'll have all our pieces. Right. There we go. All right, so time to assemble the actual ears. Okay, so you're gonna take your 2 1/4-inch foam pieces, and you're going to glue them together. The hot glue I like to use is Gorilla Hot Glue. I feel that it works better. And I am just putting a layer on. Sorry, let me just move this so it's a little bit more. And then I am just going to sandwich. And I just push down against a hard surface, so against my table, and let that set in place. And that way it's nice and flat and you don't get any sort of gapping. The next thing is on one side, I glue down my fleece interfacing. The rough side is what you're gonna glue to the foam. And that's because I only stuff one side of my ears. If you like to have both sides of your ears stuffed, hey, ooh, somebody's not happy. If you stuff both sides of your ears, you don't need this, but I don't. So this then goes on like so. There you go. So you have your 2 sets of 1/4-inch foam, and then your fleece interfacing glued on top of that. The next step is to take the ear that you sewed, okay? All these steps will be different if you're doing like no sew or it'll be the same if you're, and what I'm doing is I'm just turning it inside out, okay? And that just kind of hides your seam. And I'm just poking out the little cauldron ends, making sure everything's kind of pushed out. This will all kind of fill in. So that's your general cauldron, kind of turned inside out. So the next thing I do is I take my foam and I fold it in half, kind of like a burrito. And then I stuff it inside. And it helps if you kind of do it long ways first and then kind of turn it in. And the hardest parts to get over are the initial hump of the rim and then the widest part of the belly, okay? And then you just kind of force it in there. Making sure it's straight and lined up with the opening. There we go. All right. All right. So the next step is there's one side that has your fleece interfacing, the other side doesn't, and I'm going to stuff the side that does not. I am just using, sorry, I opened it upside down, so hold on. So just regular Polyfil. The one that I actually recommend better than just regular Polyfil is they make a silk one. Its fibers don't quite kind of pop out, but it's a little bit more pricier and it doesn't come in bulk, and I kind of like to buy it in bulk. I'm just using little tiny pieces, and I start at the top. And I am just stuffing, starting with the little cauldrons and stuffing the rim first, okay? Once you kind of get the rim, you can use bigger chunks because then you're just filling in kind of the body. And then I like mine super stuffed, so I just kind of stuff it all the way. All right. There you go. And you can see I'm even off a little bit. There's a little pointy. You'll hide it, don't worry. So the next step then is to glue the bottom shut. And how I do that is you always want to start with the back. All right. So I just start by kind of gluing the corners in a little bit first, just to kind of cover. And I make sure I kind of fold down the rough edge so you don't really get all that much, okay? Just kind of folding those corners down. And then I just kind of put a layer of glue in on the actual foam. It's inside, and just kind of push in. All right. And the next step is the front, sorry. So same thing, I'm just kind of folding the corners down and in, putting a little bit of glue on there, and folding them up. Sorry guys, I'm out of focus. See, a little bit of glue. Let's do this. Let's move this way. My hot glue gun only has so long of a cord. So Hubs keeps talking about buying me one of those cordless Arobi ones. We'll see. He's like obsessed with Arobi tools, so maybe I'll get lucky for Christmas. We'll see. So next step is then I just put a ribbon of glue, kind of it's like right in the middle between the two pieces of foam, and I folded down this back part. I don't know if you guys can see. And then I just pull that up then and fold down. And I'm just holding it just so that way that seam gets established. And don't really worry about what the bottom looks like because it's going to get glued to the headband. So if you get kind of glue swashed on it, because you have to realize with hot glue, you can kind of see down here, it really shows on black. Hey, bud. All right, so that's held in place. So the next step then, let me kind of trim my rough edge there. All right. Next step then is to add the potion, okay? So remember I said the best thing for this is the adhesive. So I pull off the white paper backing, and then this is sticky. Yeah, it's sticky, no cat hairs in it. Got it, bud? All right, so then I just line it up with the edge, okay, your seam. Okay, wherever your seam is, that's what I line up, and then I just kind of press and form it along that seam, and then I press down. Now, I don't really trust the adhesive on the backs of these, and I'd be worried that it would start coming up, that sort of thing. So I'm going to actually hot glue it down as well, and that's why the adhesive's nice, because then I just pull it up halfway, starting at the top, mainly down so I can get around the eyeballs. Okay, that's sort of where my end point is. So I start down and around the eyeballs, going around them and around the top there. All right, and then I push this down then, but it should go exactly where I had it before because the bottom is held down with the sticky foam, the adhesive. So there's that. So then the next step is to do each one of the dribbles, okay? So I did the end ones when I did the sort of top part. So I just lift them up, take my glue, put a little dabble on there, stick down, lift up, and I just go in order. Lift up, put a little glue behind it, lift, stick down, and just work my way. Oop. All the way around. I think I just make sure all those edges, because that's where it's going to come up first. You know, it's not going to come up at the top, it's going to come up at these little bottom dribbles. So I just make sure they're all glued down. All right, so last step is to glue on your handles. And remember, I didn't use the sticky foam for that. See, I was back to it if I can talk. I am just putting a dab of glue on the end of each handle, and then they go on each side underneath the lip, and they just kind of hang off like that. All right. So dab of glue on each end. And attach. There you go. All right, so at this point you can stop the video if you don't need to know how to attach them to the headband or how to make my bows, because I stick the same video and the same ending on how I do my bows and how I attach them in every video, just in case this is the only one you're watching. So you can stop it if you don't need to know that, because now you have a completed ear, can just make your bow or use a pre-made one and then attach to your headband. But we'll go over. Okay, so I have my 2 sets of ears. So the next step then is to make my bow. I very sloppily have cut out my pieces, and I decided, ooh, actually, I don't have all my pieces cut out. So I decided I'm going to put this kind of sparkly mesh over, because they didn't really have like sparkly orange fabric that I liked. And this actually is kind of cool because it glows in the dark, and I'm just trying to find the end of it, because what I realized I didn't do was cut an overlay piece for the part that kind of holds the whole bow together. That would kind of be important. There we go. Right. So how I do this is, first step is to make the body of the bow. And this is, again, my fusible fleece interfacing. With the fusible side, this is about 1 inch smaller than the actual cutout fabric. And I am running out of glue. Just putting hot glue on the rough side of the fusible fleece. So the fusible side, the rough side, is what you are gluing down. Theoretically, yes, you could get an iron out and fuse this, but I'm lazy and don't want to just plug it in for one thing. Trust me, I've also been known, if I have my heat press on, to use my heat press as well. Alright, so let's lay this down too. So now I have that glued on, okay. I have, because I'm using a kind of glitter tool overlay that glows in the dark, I'm going to lay that down on the bottom, okay. And then what I do is, just around the fusible, I'm putting a layer of glue. Doesn't matter which side you start. And I am just kind of folding up, alright, to meet it. And the glue is hot enough, because I use high temp, to also hold down the mesh. It kind of seeps through it, and will hold that down as well. If it doesn't, you'll have to tack it down. Just be like there. Just be super careful, because you know the hot glue is going to come right through that mesh. So just be careful. Whoop. All right, and then we'll do this end. And it doesn't matter. Typically, I actually start with the short ends this time. Typically, I actually start with the long ends, but it doesn't matter as long as you do both the short ends first or both the long ends first. Okay. So now I'm moving to the long ends, and I'm going to fold those in. And I'm just holding it down with my hand, just making sure it kind of sticks both layers down. Like I said, see how it's kind of coming up? You may need to kind of, yowzers, just be careful, because it's hot and it comes through the mesh then. So just be a little careful. Let it kind of, don't do it right away. Push down on it. Give it a little time to kind of set up. Otherwise, it's just going to be super hot when you push it down. And this side you're not going to see, so it doesn't really matter that you can kind of, you know, see the glue through here at all. So this then is all glued down. My ends are a smidge sloppy. And then you're going to take the short ends and you're going to pull them towards the middle. So I just put a ribbon of glue on one of the short ends. All right. And then I fold it towards the middle. All right. And then I put ribbon of glue then down the center, above where you meant the, so it's not on the piece you just folded up, but right in front of it. And then I just fold up the other piece and then just fold them so they meet. And then that will be the body of your bow, okay? The other thing I do is sometimes these will open up and you'll be able to see inside of the bow. This actually you can't really, so I'm just gonna leave it. But if it does, I'll put some glue in here and then press it shut, okay? So next step is kind of to do the middle part of the bow. And that's this tiny piece that you'll cut out. And then since I'm using the overlay again, my cotton woven is on the top. All right, with my tool on the bottom, and I'm just putting a ribbon of glue on that one long edge and folding it towards the middle. All right. And then you'll have to attach the mesh as well. Whoop. That's not sticking. Alright, so that lines up there. So then I'll just put a layer of glue down then, because you're not going to see this. Alright, on that just to adhere my mesh to. I keep calling it mesh, it's tool. But anyway, alright. There we go. And then I'll take the other long edge, that raw edge, put a line of glue. And again, fold that towards the middle. So those two ends then meet. You can see. All right, and then I'll glue this up. So I just put a line of glue then there. Let it kind of dry a little bit, because otherwise it's super hot and I don't want to, my fingers are well burned and well seasoned. I don't know, see all that hot glue on there. Comes off eventually. All right. So there we go. All right. So then how I do the bows is I pinch it in the middle and then fold the edges back. All right. So it kind of, see, fold in the middle, fold the edges back. It'll look like that on the back side. It'll look like that on the front side. Not like that, because that's kind of gaping. There we go. All right. And then I take my middle piece, line it up in the middle, fold around to the back, put some hot glue on the wrong side of one of the edges. Usually I pick the longer one. And just fold that down and make sure my finger doesn't get glued to it. There we go. And then put glue on the other short edge. And pull that up. And you want to make sure you're pulling tight too. Alright. And then I'm just holding this just to let the glue set up. And then this is our last element. And then we can assemble. So I use an ear template. This comes in every zip file. And this is how I set up my ears. So that way I get the alignment correct. Another method is that you can use I typically use 4 fingers. I have tiny fingers. If you have bigger fingers, it'll be 3. But I use 4 fingers, and that'll also give me the correct length. So I line up the band on my template. And then with this template, I slide them over. I found that I just like 1/4 of an inch in. Okay. So I don't know if you guys can see. And this is with any of the ears. I like them in about 1/4 of an inch, okay, from where that is. Just because of when they end up on your head, they kind of slide up higher. So if you have them more up here, they're going to end up top. It's just the way the band, when it stretches over your head, they kind of end up. So I'm just going to put a ribbon of glue. Again, I'm using Gorilla Glue. I kind of use 2, go up and down. And then I'm just going to slide it about 1/4 inch down and put it on the middle. And I hold on my band. And I hold for about a good 30 seconds. All right. Make sure that's all lined up. Get my other ear. Gonna peel off all the hot glue crap. All right, like I said again, on the base, I kind of go up and I come down, so it's kind of like 2 ribbons. Kind of went up a 3rd time, but whatever. All right, and then about 1/4 of an inch down from that top line, place it in the middle and hold. Now this is where it's kind of optional. You can put something around the bottom. I did not. But some people like to hide the attachment and the glue lines, but they don't really look all that bad, so I just left them. I typically do if it's just like a regular ear, but if it's supposed to be something, it sometimes looks odd with kind of like a band there. So I'm just holding this in place. They're glued on. And then sort of the last step is just attaching my bow. And what I do is I just put a ribbon of glue right on the bottom. And then I just eyeball the middle and hold down. Just like another good 20-30 seconds. All right. So there is your completed ears. Oop, there's the other pair. Whoop. So if you guys can see. Maybe. There we go. All I just need to do is an orange pair and I'll have all the bucket colors covered. As always, if you guys have any questions, anything like that, just let me know. But these are pretty easy and pretty straightforward to make and cool looking. All right, hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.